everybody, I'm Matthew Hines for Encounters USA. Today I want to talk to you for just a few minutes about the reality of what we're doing here at Encounters USA. What we're doing here is we are compiling data on reports from sightings of aliens and UFOs, Bigfoot, and of course the dogman phenomena. If you're not familiar with any of these, please watch some of our videos or listen to our podcast. Now, the thing that I want to talk about today briefly, I'm going to show you two reports. One is a field investigation I did, and the other one is based upon news release released by the Washington State Department of Transportation. We're going to look at these, and I want to give you some clues as to where you can find what the British would call a spurious encounter, or dodgy, as they also might say. So we're going to look at these in a second, but when you're looking at encounters in Washington State, probably more than any other state, you really have to take them with a grain of salt. First of all, look at the sheer number of encounters that happen in Washington State. Now, I grew up here and I had never heard of a Bigfoot anywhere in Washington State. I mean, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I guess it just wasn't talked about. But where I grew up is supposedly now some kind of a Bigfoot hotspot, of which I had never even heard of a Bigfoot in the area where I lived and grew up. And this is, and I had never even heard of a Bigfoot sighting or anything from any of the loggers or dads of my friends who were loggers or friends who were loggers out in the woods. Not one person has ever talked about an encounter with a Bigfoot. Now doesn't mean that they're not there. It's just that until recently I had never heard of it and nobody had. So when you look at encounters in Washington State, the first thing that you have to look at is that people come here and have come here from all over the country, and some of them come here for a lot of different reasons, but a lot of them come here thinking that Bigfoot is something like the Space Needle, and that every time a pine cone falls in the woods, or a tree branch breaks, or a raccoon steals a candy bar off a picnic table, that's a Sasquatch. And so you really have to take these encounters with a grain of salt, because people are really just coming here and going out in the woods knowing nothing about this place except that maybe there's a Sasquatch out there. So now let's go ahead and look at a couple of the encounters that I want to show you. Hello everybody, I'm Matthew Hines for Encounters USA. Today's report, we are at the base almost of Mount Si, which is right behind us. Now, Mount Si and I-90 are right near the town of Snoqualmie, Washington. Snoqualmie, Washington is a hotspot of Bigfoot encounters. Today, we are here to investigate an encounter that happened not too long ago down on the Snoqualmie River. Now, one thing that is important about this area is that this is one of the last towns you'll reach before you start to head eastward over Snoqualmie Pass. Between here and Snoqualmie Pass is basically nothing but mountains, trees, and a lot of prime Bigfoot habitat. So that's why we get so many sightings out here near Snoqualmie. So let's go ahead and head on down to the river and check out this sighting that we're investigating today. So right now we're standing right above Snoqualmie Falls, which you can see right there. No green screen here. So the actual sighting, or the picture that we're trying to track down, actually occurred a little bit up the falls. So what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna go back straight out, parallel the river, and try to make our way back to where this picture was actually taken. By the time we'd reached Snoqualmie Falls, I knew it was going to be a challenge getting down to the river. We'd actually gone into all the access points we could travel on a vehicle, and there just didn't seem to be any way to get down next to the spot we needed to be. After checking out gate number 2, we decided the only hope we had was to go down and try to find an access point where the bridge crossed the Snoqualmie River. So if that didn't work, then we were just going to come back and have to go ahead and step in good old number 2. Alright, for the past few minutes I've been trying to get as close as I can to this actual sighting. Now in the side of this camera right behind me, I'm not sure the best way to do this, but right here, this is the actual area where this Bigfoot picture was taken. And so they were standing, I believe, someplace right across the river there. So right now, the river itself, or the side of the river, is actually overgrown. It's overgrown with a lot of vegetation. So is this the right area that it was sighted in? Well, I'm pretty sure it is, and the reason I say that is because right before the falls, which are just a little way down, there is a little structure made out of concrete, which is also available in the picture. So let's take a look at the picture and compare the two shots. Okay, so the first thing you're going to see in the picture is, as you're looking at it, is you're going to notice these lines that are crossing the river here. So that gives us the indication that this is the actual right spot. And so the thing that we're looking at is, I'm sorry, I should move over here. It's actually right here. But from this angle, it's impossible to get over there. And they're really strict about people moving around in this area, and it's very closed off, so it's very difficult for me to get back and actually get a shot. I'm going to try, but I'm not going to guarantee any success. Ready? All right, so once again I am tramping through the brush, and I'm just trying to find a way over to that river. And I think the easiest way to do it is just to kind of hang out by this fence and do the Bigfoot thing and crash my way through this brush. Now there's stinging nettles, and they really stink. So hopefully it's not too far. And there's the river. All right, so now the question is, can we get a good vantage point across there? And that right there, my friends, is, let me see if I can zoom. That is the clump that you can see, and unfortunately it's so difficult to see, but if you look right under that line there, right to the right of that is the spot, and so that is where the Sasquatch sighting occurred. And if it's there, it's really up to you, but of course nothing there now, but that's where it was, so you be the judge. Now I gotta try to find my way back out of here. In the end, I was somewhat disappointed with the results of the investigation. The first thing that I have to point out is that this investigation from the beginning was rather spurious in itself, because if you scroll down on the particular article that I was looking at, it showed that the object in question, which was very dark in the darkened picture, when it was lightened, actually it was the bottom of a tree. When the tree was uprooted, it fell over, you know, in the river, and you were just looking at the base of the roots. Now, there is some controversy about the fact that that root structure was actually much smaller in the lighter picture than it is in the second picture. And our psychic, our famous Barbara, who you can see on the podcast if you watch Encounters USA, the podcast, mentions that there is some kind of a Sasquatch Bigfoot presence in the area. And she also has the presence of a lot of animals and a lot of Native Americans. And remember that this would have been a prime fishing spot for salmon that were making their way back up the Snoqualmie River to spawn. So all along this river would have been very crowded almost with Native American tribes, particularly the Snoqualmie Indians. The conclusion to this investigation? Well, I think that I agree that there is no physical evidence whatsoever that there is any Bigfoot sighting here, or any Bigfoot presence here. Now, this is a very highly reported area of Sasquatch creatures, and as I said in the video, from here all the way up to Snoqualmie Pass and beyond is prime Bigfoot territory. So it's not to say there's not a Bigfoot here, but in this picture, we're just going to have to say there's definitely not enough evidence. And from the investigation I did, the structure of the river happens to have changed so much so that that tree that was there and the bank that it was on has actually been taken away, probably in last winter's heavy snowfall. So that's the end of this investigation, and now let's look at another one. All right, everybody, this is our second story we need to take a look at, and this story comes out of what looks like to be a Forterra, which we're going to talk about at the end of the article. And also what we're going to talk about is how and why this particular article might or could be spurious. So here we have Sasquatch caught on camera. A recent wildlife camera photo shows the mythical ape-like creature using an I-90 wildlife bridge. Late Friday evening, scientists flagged a mysterious image on the wildlife camera at the Gold Creek underpass just east of Snoqualmie Pass, part of the I-90 Wildlife Bridges project to reconnect wildlife habitat in the Cascades. The figure is believed to be Sasquatch, according to biologists at Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife. Local lore has long included stories of a large, hairy, muscular, bipedal ape-like creature, also known as Bigfoot, who stalks the forests of the Pacific Northwest. Until now, his existence had yet to be confirmed. There's that nice picture of Sasquatch Bigfoot right there, and walking with him is a deer. We'll come back to that. Biologists from U.S. Fish and Wildlife say that the size and lumbering gait of the creature captured on camera does not match any of the many wildlife species who use the underpasses to safely cross the interstate to access critical habitat, including grizzly bear, gray wolf, bull trout, and others. Gee, if I were a predator, where would I hang out? Incredibly, Ellensburg man Randy Irwin reports having a conversation with Sasquatch. He stopped to offer help when Mr. Irwin's truck broke down near the Gold Creek underpass. Although he has been a mysterious figure in the Pacific Northwest for many years, Sasquatch apparently leads a life in many ways not unlike his fellow Northwesterners. According to Mr. Irwin, Sasquatch was traveling from a silent meditation retreat in the woods outside of Vancouver, British Columbia, to attend his friend's Passover Seder in Portland. In recent years, Sasquatch has given up eating other animals and feels better than ever on a purely plant-based diet, save for a few cheat meals and holidays. He said that the new underpasses have been a total life changer as the increased connectivity allows him to forage over a larger geographic area. For more information about the I-90 Wildlife Coalition and the Wildlife Bridges Project, click here. Forterra is proud to be an active partner in the I-90 Wildlife Bridges Coalition and over many years to have conserved a number of properties near the wildlife bridges to enhance wildlife habitat connectivity. It has also been reported that Sunday, April 1st, is April Fool's Day. Now, since I just got sucked into doing an advertisement for a company called Forterra, who apparently does bridges, is in a multi-billion-dollar one of these highway construction companies, let me just point out some of the things that you should be careful of when you're looking at these encounter stories, be it Sasquatch, Dogman, or alien. First thing, look for a source. Okay, the figure or the source here is the Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife. All right, so and they're also saying that his existence had yet to be confirmed until now, but were you to do a Google search, you would find that there has been no other confirmation of Bigfoot except for some unnamed official at Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife who have made a couple of other crazy claims in the past. So there's one of your flags right there. Now, another flag that we need to look at is right here. We have a deer and we have our Sasquatch. Now, I'm no expert, but if I were to transpose that image onto Patty, the first documented, videoed, filmed Bigfoot Sasquatch, that would probably, you'd be able to lay that right into Patty's figure on the film. So you have to watch and look at your actual photographic evidence. All right, so the next thing we need to look at is we need to look for sources. Randy Irwin. If you do a Google search for Randy Irwin in Clay Ellum, he is actually dead. So died some time ago. So rest in peace, Mr. Irwin. Probably not the source. So, and as you go on and you continue through the information of an account, if it turns out to be a commercial for a multi-billion-dollar construction company that is making these basic places for animals to be slaughtered as they come through the overpass or underpass, then yes, that would probably be something that you should, in most cases, find questionable. So in conclusion, I think that it is more than apparent when you look at a Bigfoot sighting in Washington State, the first thing that you have to look at is that you are looking at people who, if they're native Washingtonians like myself, you know, it's probably going to be a more credible sighting, and not to take anything away from the fine folks who decided to move up here for whatever reason, but they came here thinking of certain things that happen in Washington State that exist here, the same as people thinking all natives in Alaska live in igloos, which there's not an igloo in all of Alaska. So unless some kids go out and build one. So this idea that Sasquatch is everywhere is prevalent in the popular culture and is going to trigger more Bigfoot sightings and more attributions of just common occurrences to a Bigfoot, than what you get probably in most places. And that's not to say there is not Bigfoot in Washington State, but at Encounters USA, this is what we're trying to find out. We're trying to separate, as they say in the Bible, the wheat from the chaff. And it's very difficult to find the wheat in an evergreen forest. So, this is Encounters USA. This is a special report, and I hope that if you are out in the woods, please watch your back.